Former Finance Minister Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu says Nigeria has already disintegrated. Kano State prepares to implement rouga settlement. On the international scene, Saudi Arabia oil production levels rise after rocket attack. And in sport, top athletes Okabari Amushon lead Team Nigeria to Doha for World Athletics Championship.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. A former finance minister, Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu, said is a disintegrated country. He said the nation is still being held together by a false sense of unity. Kanu is calling on the federal government to postpone the 2023 elections so that many of the problems facing the nation could be addressed. Kanu spoke about insecurity in the country. He said many Nigerians fear to move around in their cities because of lawlessness. He also said one main reason as well for fear is that people believe if something happened to them, they are on their own. The former minister said this fears are ingredients for disintegration. The World Bank trained economist said, quote, if you're robbed, injured, if you are dispossessed and you know that there is somebody there whose duty is to bring remedy in some form, you will take the risk, end quote. Kadu said since some assurances are not in place for citizens, the nation is already disintegrated. He said Nigeria should not have allowed itself to be in pieces as it is now, or to have allowed itself to get so down low as it is now. The former minister said 80% of all the good things and respect Nigeria had around the world at the dawn of independence has evaporated. This is very serious and disheartening, especially to the younger generation. Apparently, the National Assembly has noticed some nefarious activities going on in the revenue-generating federal ministries, departments, and agencies known as MDAs. It has warned all of them that engage in diversion of funds to desist from such actions. Senate Committee Chairman on Finance, Senator Solomon Adiola, issued the warning after meeting with his counterpart in the House of Representatives. Adiola said in a statement on Sunday that the era of diversion of revenues was over. He said the National Assembly will ensure the federal government generates enough revenue to implement people-oriented policies and programs. Adiola cautioned that unauthorized expenditures will not be tolerated from agencies of government. It says everything must be backed by law or relevant acts of the National Assembly guiding such expenditures, and that they must now be in compliance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act and other applicable laws in Nigeria. The 26-member Kano State Committee for the Establishment of Rouga and Milk Markets in Kano State says it has produced a master plan for both Rouga and milk market operations in the state. The committee says it has recommended facilities such as industrial borehole, veterinary clinic, dispensary, earth dam, milk collection center, primary school, Islamia school, mosque, dump collection site, and security outpost for the settlement. Dansoshiya Forest was recommended for grass cultivation, while Dangwaro was named as the most ideal site for the construction of modern milk markets. The committee said its recommendations did not only address the crucial issues of clashes between farmers and herders, but that they would also pave the way for Fulani herders to join the former state economy. Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje says his main reason for establishing rouga settlements is to change the narrative from socio-cultural to socio-economic for the advancement of Fulani themselves, the state, and the nation. Now to business. The Human and Environmental Development Agenda HEDA Resource Center has sent a petition to the Nigerian Security Exchange Commission, giving it a 14-day ultimatum to delist some members of MTN's new board. HEDA says former public office holders listed as new board members of the giant telco should be immediately rejected. The organization had alleged in the petition it released to the media on Sunday that MTN's Nigeria's recent board member selection represents an economic intrigue aimed at insulating MTN from adverse local political action. It was indirectly referring to a recent wrangling between the company and the regulatory agency, the Nigerian Communications Commission, and the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. He does specifically mentioned the appointment of Ernest Ndukwe, a one-time executive vice chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission. The group also opposed the appointment of Mohammed Ahmad, former chairman of the Technical Committee of the Nigeria Code on Corporate Governance, Andre Ali, who was said to be closely connected with outgoing board chairman Pascal Dozier, whose Diamond Bank recently merged with Access Bank, Omobola Johnson, former Minister for Communications from 2011 to 2015, and Ifueko Okwado, former Executive Director of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. Nigeria's economy has been topsy-turvy lately, experiencing high unemployment numbers, dwindling factory production numbers, and other woes that could befall an economy. Now, Deji Badmus reports new numbers show the nation's gross domestic product has dipped to under 2%.
To get a sense of how disappointing Nigeria's second quarter GDP growth rate is, you need to look at the country's 2019 budget projection. Authorities had forecast a 3.01% GDP growth rate. But if this second quarter GDP result is anything to go by, that forecast will sure be wide off the mark.
I'm really worried and worried that if we continue at this rate of growth, we might not even be able to do 2%. It's not a good thing for the economy. I mean, just putting it straight. And those who want to invest in Nigeria might also be worried or bothered as to the kind of growth that we have this moment today.
But the IMF and World Bank projected 2.1% growth for Nigeria this year. But the second quarter growth rate suggests the government needs to work much harder to even achieve those targets. And what's even more worrying to some experts is the possible implication of the second quarter GDP figure on jobs.
The sector that drive employment are either in negative territory or slowing down. I mean, the major manufacturing sector that contracted by 0.13%. The manufacturing sector is a major employer of labor. The trade sector, which also contracts, is a major employer of labor. The construction industry is a major employer of labor. The real estate sector is a major employer of labor. So these are sectors that actually create the jobs. So if they are in contraction mode or have gone into the negative territory, then you can also recognize why the level of employment may continue to increase.
Nigeria's current unemployment rate is put at 23.1%. That figure is likely to go up by the end of the year. Authorities face a very daunting challenge to address the problem in a country where the population growth continues to outstrip economic growth.
We need to make policy that will put money in people's pocket, and the people will spend their way from individual recession nature to a national economic prosperity. We need growth that is not less than 7% for us to say that we are growing desirably, and this growth must not be jobless. What that means is for us to have growth that is job inclusive, it must not be necessarily driven by oil. It must be driven by non-oil sector, because that is where the jobs are.
Nigeria's economy is still very much an oil-driven one. The GDP figures clearly show that, and this is despite the current efforts of the government at diversifying the economy.
So one thing is clear, the country must continue to hope that everything holds in its oil industry and that global oil prices either go up or do not go below their current level. Anything to the contrary could have a devastating consequence on this economy.
Coming up, African news. 36 killed in DRC ship accident. And later, international news. Saudi Arabia oil production levels increases after rocket attack.
You are watching ANN.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Carrie just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. 36 persons are reported dead after a ship sank in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. A cargo ship and passenger vessel sank in the Congo River in the Kinshasa region on Sunday. Police say there were 76 survivors and that the causes of the accident are not yet known. The DRC's waterways are accident-prone. The dilapidated boats that are often in a state of disrepair usually overload passengers and cargo in waters that lack borage. In most cases, passengers do not wear life jackets and most of them cannot swim. The DRC has an area of 2.5 million square kilometers because it has very few good roads. People have resorted to traveling on the country's lakes and tributaries. Somalia has been rocked once again by another militant attack. 17 persons were killed when the Al-Shabaab group launched a series of attacks since Saturday in Lower Shabelle region. Officials there say the militants attacked the town of Wayole using rocket-propelled grenades and heavy machine guns. They killed 9 persons there. Governor of the region, Ibrahim Adan Najjar, says the allegations are being investigated. There was no immediate comments by Amisom forces. Al-Shabaab says it was targeting the Prime Minister, but the governor said the attack took place outside the town. Governor Najjar himself was attacked on Sunday after his convoy was targeted with a remote-controlled explosion. He was traveling in an agricultural area near the town of Shalambod, about 20 kilometers south of Waloyi town. Security sources say 2 bodyguards were killed and 4 others were injured. 4 regional officials were killed and 6 others were injured in another roadside explosion on Sunday in the neighboring Middle Shabelle region. Quite a bloody weekend there. Many foreign nationals in South Africa have left the country after so many of them were killed by xenophobes in the country. Many still remain who bear the ruins and injuries of the xenophobic attacks. As Angela Coppola reports, the South African government is helping those remaining foreigners that were affected by the ugly attacks on their persons and businesses.
The violence that engulfed South Africa in the past few weeks was sparked by the killing of a taxi driver in Pretoria. Reports state that an alleged drug dealer, a foreign national, shot and killed the taxi driver. The taxi driver had apparently been trying to stop the peddling of drugs. After the killing, South African taxi drivers and locals instantly retaliated, taking the matter into their own hands. President Cyril Ramaphosa visited the family of the slain taxi driver, Jabu Baloyi.
Jabu Baloyi has become a major symbol on the issue of drugs because he took a stand, and in the course of taking a stance and a stand against drugs, he sacrificed his life because he is one of those members of our community who felt very strongly against the peddling of drugs and the drug abuse that's happening in our communities, and he sought to stop that.
Ramaphosa used the opportunity of this visit to also commit to ensuring that xenophobic attacks are swiftly dealt with.
We are totally committed against attacks and to foreign nationals, including xenophobic tendencies or feelings towards others. We need, as South Africans, yes, to deal with the challenges that we face, whether it be job issues or whatever, and drugs. But as we do all that, we should also make sure that We do not take out our anger against people from other nations, and indeed against anyone amongst us as well.
A number of foreign nationals have opted to leave South Africa with immediate effect after the attacks, citing a fear for their lives. 12 people died during the attacks, 10 of them South Africans. President Ramaphosa has opted to delegate the International Relations and Cooperations Minister Naledi Pandor to attend the session at the United Nations General Assembly later this month to ensure that he attends to immediate and critical issues in the country, such as this one.
Even as his flag-draped coffin sat in a stadium surrounded by all the pomp and pageantry one would expect at a state funeral, Zimbabweans could not resist expressing how they really felt about their deceased former leader, Robert Mugabe. Everything was in place at the memorial for a man hailed as an African icon, everything except one, a crowd. Very few Zimbabweans showed up in Harare for the final send-off for Mugabe at the National Sports Stadium, where only about one-third of the 60,000 capacity venue was filled. The showing was rather poor, especially when compared to the fully packed venue during the inauguration of the current president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, the man who used the military to force Mugabe to resign 2 years ago. Mugabe, tagged as the father of independence, Zimbabwe died last week at the age of 95. He ruled Zimbabwe with an iron fist for 37 years and left the country in a wretched condition. When we return, international news. Saudi oil output increases after rocket attack. And later, sports. Top athletes Okabari and Mushon lead Team Nigeria to Doha for World Athletics Championship.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. An attack on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities over the weekend has knocked out more than 5% of global oil supply, which automatically increased oil prices to their highest level in nearly 4 months. State oil giant Saudi Aramco says the attack has cut output by nearly 6 million barrels per day. Coordinated strikes on key Saudi Arabian oil facilities, which are among the world's largest and most important energy production centers, have disrupted about half of the kingdom's oil production capacity. Saudi Arabia says its oil exports will continue as normal this week as the kingdom taps into stocks from its large storage facilities. A senior U.S. official has accused Iran for the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil industry, including the world's biggest petroleum processing facility. It says cruise missiles may have been used. Iran said it has nothing to do with the attacks. Yemen's Houthi rebels claimed responsibility for the attacks on Sunday. They say 10 drones targeted state-owned Saudi Aramco oil facilities in Abqaiq and Kurais. 7 persons have been confirmed dead in a plane crash in southern Colombia. The incident occurred shortly after takeoff from the airport in Popoyan, a city of 270,000 people. Mayor Cesar Gomez says 7 of the 9 persons aboard were killed in the crash. The 2 others were injured and are receiving treatment at a hospital. The 3rd person hurt was a child on the ground in the area where the plane crashed. Colombia's Civil Aviation Authority is investigating the cause of the crash. Hong Kong's pro-democracy demonstrators returned to the street for a 15th weekend of mass protests demanding more autonomy from the central government in Beijing. Tens of thousands of people streamed down a 6-lane roadway in downtown Hong Kong as police tried to repel the protesters. Demonstrators in retaliation hurled petrol bombs into government headquarters, touching a water cannon carrying vehicle that was parked inside the fortified compound. At least one metro station went up in flames, a victim of arson. Shops were also hit. A group flew American flags fronted by a banner that read, "President Trump, please liberate Hong Kong." The protesters demanded on Sunday that London ask Beijing to honor the 1984 Sino-British Declaration, which set out the terms when Hong Kong was returned to China in 1997. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is set to host Russian and Iranian counterparts in Ankara to discuss developments in Syria. All three leaders are meeting to try to secure a lasting truce in northwest Syria following attacks by the governments that risk deepening regional turmoil and pushing a new wave of migrants toward Turkey. The summit in Ankara is bringing together countries whose Syrian allies are combatants in an 8-year-old war. The summit will focus on the Idlib region, the last remaining territory held by rebels seeking to overthrow President Bashar al-Assad. Erdogan, along with the United States, European and Arab allies, have supported different rebel factions in the conflict. In an interview with Reuters news agency on Friday, Erdogan warned that any Syrian government attack on the post would draw retaliation from Turkish forces, possibly risking a direct confrontation between Ankara and Damascus. Erdogan and Putin agreed at talks in Moscow in August to normalize the situation in the region after Syrian troops encircled rebels and a Turkish post in a move Ankara said threatened its national security. And U.S. Democratic presidential candidates are demanding the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh be investigated or impeached in response to a new sexual allegation report against him. The report says he exposed himself to a female classmate at a drunken dorm party years ago at Yale University. The allegation surfaced on Saturday night in a New York Times report. The alleged victim says she notified senators and the FBI before Kavanaugh's confirmation, but the FBI did not investigate. The Washington Post confirmed last year that 2 intermediaries had relayed such a claim to lawmakers and the FBI. All parties involved declined any comment. Republicans denounced the Times report as an effort by the media to smear Kavanaugh. On Sunday morning, President Trump tweeted that Kavanaugh should start suing people or the Justice Department should come to his rescue. Still to come, sports. Okagbari Amushon lead Team Nigeria to Doha for World Athletics Championship. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sports, Nigeria has named its contingent for the 2019 IAAF World Athletics Championships. African record holder in hurdles Toby Amushon and long jump African champion Esther Brume, as well as 33 others, made the list for the global tournament in Qatar in 2 weeks. Technical Director for the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, Sunday Adeleye, says the organization is awaiting the nod from IAAF on the eligibility of some athletes who featured for Nigeria at the 2019 African Games. A Super Eagles defender Olaino is the highest Nigeria earner in the Italian Serie A for the 2019-2020 season. Aino joined Torino on a permanent deal from Chelsea this summer for a reported £10 million. He's on a €1 million annual salary. Cristiano Ronaldo tops the list of top earners in the Italian Serie A with an annual salary of 31 million euros. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.